Welcome, I'm Tim van der Meijden. I'm gonna show you a small tutorial about animating in Inventor. And before we begin, I'm gonna show you some stuff that you have to do before you start. First you need to start putting the assembly of the the car or a model that you want to move in another assembly. I can show you here. I've put the assembly of the car or the robot in my case into another assembly with a base that I call the pathing for the robot. Before we go any further, so the second step in that assembly is to put it on flexible, as I can show you here. You have the robot and you can click on your right mouse button and put it on flexible. The reason to do that is so you can move the parts in the assembly in another assembly. So when we have done that, we can go to the Inventor Studio. By going to the tab Environments and then press the button Inventor Studio, we go to the studio automatically. When I open Inventor Studio, it always goes back to the last camera or the last scene I used. So I'm going to put it a little bit back so you can see the overall view. And before you even start animating some constraints or components, you have to go to the animation timeline to check what the length you have for the video. I got 20 seconds of video on this timeline. You see it's collapsed now, you don't see anything at all. But if you press this button, Expand Action Editor, it expands and you can see everything that you have animated or put in from the camera. When you press Animate Components, you get a few options you can select. First off, we're gonna select what we want to move. We don't just want to move the robot head or the eyes or the arms or whatever. So we're gonna press the robot assembly in his whole, by pressing the sidebar. Then we can choose from a certain point of view. So we can see, okay, we want to go to the left side right now. You can choose a path or if it's sharp or smooth. I always like the smooth path. And now we can choose a distance that we want to take, but it doesn't work like that. So we have to press position. If you press position, it gives you a few options to either rotate on the around the axis, or go in the length of the axis, or just move it as a part to whatever you want to. So I want to follow into the corridor, so I'm gonna press the red arrow and I can select the distance I want to take it. Now I know it's around the 90, 98, well let's say just 85. That's a nice distance. You see it already goes to that destination, and because we didn't have put in a time that we wanted to, we have to select one by pressing specify. Now I could say that I want it to start around second 1 and ending at 1.5, or I can select that I want to use it on the 4th second. You can choose it from there. If you want to happen it instantaneous, of course you have the button instantaneous. So then it just takes 0 seconds. If that doesn't work from the instantaneous, you can use specify and put in a 0.1 second. So if you press specify, you can now it starts at 4.1. You can choose 4.2, and then it happens instantly. It's like if you blink, you don't even see it. If you want to choose a certain acceleration, you go to the tab acceleration, of course. Here you can specify the velocity, I want 10% on the acceleration, 80 on the constant speed for the rest of the time, and 10% for deceleration. You can always use the default speed, for a movie that doesn't really matter about speed. You can choose from that. And you get a constant speed, so it always goes the same speed. This acceleration option is with every animation. Like if you want to fade something, you can use acceleration button. If you want to constrain something, you can use acceleration button. It's always there. If you want to fade a component, if you don't want it there, or if you want to remove the cover so you can see what's inside, you can always use the option animate fade. It's really simple. You just have to press the component that you want to fade away. You can say press like the walls. I want to get rid of the walls. It starts at 100% like always, and you can end it on either transparency, so you can like maybe 10%, so you can look through it but it's still there, or you can say okay, let's just remove it and press 0, and then it just fades away. So now I'm gonna explain the constraint animation. Here you have to select a specific constraint that you can find with your assembly. Like I got a lot of angle constraints, a lot of normal constraints. The most popular ones to use is like the angle constraint for the wheels or the arms that you want to move. You get 3 features. The first one is the constraint with a dimension, so you can choose either from going back or forth, how much degrees you want, how much millimeters you want to go further. You can suppress the animation, so it no longer uses that constraint, or you can enable the constraint. It's just all in the animation. But I have to say, the suppress and the enable animation constraint doesn't work all the time, so try not to use those. So if you're done animating and you have a certain view for a certain scene that you want, you can always put on another camera. You have the option under studio lighting styles, camera, and it says target and position. First you have to say what you want to film. So for now I want to film the robot because I like robots. And you can select the position from where you want the camera to be. So I want it against the wall. One very important thing in like small parts is put the camera on perspective. Because if you put it on orthographic, it goes behind the wall, so it doesn't film the object at all. So watch that and use perspective. Here you can select the type of zoom you want. I personally like the small one, so you get the robot really into in the camera. And the rest of the options you have to look. It's a matter of opinion. Like I don't like the depth of field, but if you like it, just use it. So now you think you want to use the camera and just want to move it, not just be static. One problem with that: you can animate the camera, but you can't put it on a certain point and let it follow. For some reason the camera goes out of position. So for that we have another thing to do. You go to animate camera. For now I already made a sketch of the path it should follow. You can see here the black line and done on the ground. You can select the camera you want to follow, and then you have to press definition. If you press definition, you can see if it has to follow a path or a certain fixed point. From now I've only been able to let it work by following a path, because you don't need to animate the camera if it's static. But for some reason the camera needs a path to follow, otherwise it doesn't do what you want. So if you have done that, that's it for your animation. It goes back and you can select from where you want to use the camera. For cameras, I personally think it's important to use the smooth option, because if you use the sharp path, it can be a little bit shocky, so always use smooth. . So if you're done with your animation and the cameras are done, you're like completely done and you want a nice render of it, and you want to use all your cameras, as in this video, you have to go to Video Producer. And you can see I already rendered the video, so that's okay. And you can see that I've put in different cameras. Like the cameras that you have put in, you have to drag it into the timeline and make a specific time you want the camera to be there. You can also use transitions. I'm not a real fan of that, but you can use it if you've got like longer videos and the rendering has to be really smooth. And for this render I just did a small movie, and if you use too much transitions there, it's not going to be pretty. So if you've done that, you can press the red button here, the record animation, and from there it makes a beautiful video. So when you have pressed the red button on the video producer, you can start with the render options. You can press the render animation itself, then it just takes the animation timeline. But if you use the video producer and press the red button from there, you get the video from the video producer. Personally, you can set the video for high quality and stuff, but if you're gonna render it on your computer, it really takes a long time. If you got like a normal gaming computer, even if you got like a 970 card, don't do too high pixels. Like if you just lock on the aspect ratio on the one you have for your screen, just put it on like 1200. Nobody sees it. It's gonna be unsharp anyways, unless you're gonna render on high quality, but then really take like a week for rendering, because it's gonna be insane. So you can I personally put on the 1200 pixels per unit for the width. Then you can put on the output level what kind of video you want, AV, MP4, whatever, and select where you want the video to be saved. And then you got two options: the time range. I always press the entire production because I don't want it to be longer than needed. But you can also specify from I want a video from that point to that point, but that's up to you. Then you got two formats: the video format and the image sequence format. Like you can either put in an AVI or an MP4, or you can make a GIF. That's up to you. And then you got, of course, the standard options, the frame rates per second. Like low quality, you can go up to 15 to 30 frames per second. Personally, if you're gonna use fades, put on preview no render. Then it just takes the video from there that you have on the video producer, but it doesn't render at all. It just takes some images and makes them a little bit more beautiful than it already is. Then you can go to the last tab, the renderer. Here you can say how much time you wanted to spend on the render itself. Like 2 minutes, of course, is way too less for it to render. So if you have a deadline, like it has to be there in 8 hours, just put in the amount of minutes you need for that video to render. Then you have the last two options, the lining and material accuracy. Like I said, you can choose from low quality, high quality. That's it. And the anti-analyzing, the image filtering, that's up to you. Your processor on the computer can be strong, can be weak. That's up to your computer. The last button you have to press is render, and just let it go. Just do nothing else on your computer, just let it render. So to conclude, animating in Inventor is possible. It's pretty hard to do though. You have to take a lot of time. And all the tips that I've named in the video already, I'm gonna put in a little summary of it. The fade on the render doesn't work. You have to put an assembly in another assembly to let it work. Don't forget it to put it on flexible. And if you want camera movement, use paths. That's it. You have to do it, otherwise it doesn't work like you want to. And last but not least, take your time to render. Thank you for watching. I hope this video about animating in Inventor was useful to you. And good luck with your video.